good deal of green architecture and sustainable practices have been in practice by the way of vernacular architecture. And in the present day too, vernacular architecture can help us attain our goal of a green and sustainable future. To talk more about it, we have with us today Mr. Sunil Patil, Principal Architect of Sunil Patil and Associates. With more than 26 years of experience, Architect Sunil Patil has successfully executed more than 375 projects in various sectors. He has delivered many seminars on various topics in architecture and also has written architectural articles for various newspapers. His works have been published in more than 80 magazines and journals, both internationally and also won various architectural awards and competitions. So let's welcome Mr. Sunil Patil.
So I'm supposed to talk about contemporary vernacular architecture today. But basically, a lot of awareness has been created about green buildings with a lot of seminars and lectures. But I think we should go back to the basics. So, before I talk about contemporary vernacular architecture, I would like to, talk about few things like if you see the history of architecture before globalization, before industrial revolution, or before mainly the revolution of transportation. All the buildings, all the structures were built with local materials, so-called vernacular materials with local, by native people adhering to the climate of the place. So, they were quite sustainable buildings and cities. But since this globalization or since this revolution in transportation, we started importing or exporting materials and ideas too, right? So I think that's where we lost that sustainability, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. So I'll just explain what is contemporary vernacular architecture according to me. Yeah, if you see, this is Jaipur city few years back. It's quite traditional. If you see the city, then built with local materials, with if you see observe the building envelopes, which we're going to talk in detail again, they're quite apt for that climate. But see the Jaipur city today. Look at those glass buildings, with the tropical climate of hot and dry climate of Jaipur. Can you imagine these glass blocks coming up there with the kind of radiation that it will have inside, and then again all these buildings are mechanically air conditioned. So you can imagine the kind of wastage of energy there. So it's managed to sustainability. So that's what is happening because of this globalization and adopting or copying styles from the Western countries. So I think we need to look at that. Then another example is of Goa. Now this is a traditional Goan architecture where because of heavy rain in Goa, it's a sloping roof. But today what you find in Goa is this style of architecture copied from abroad. So I think we need to look at few things. If we implement ethos from vernacular architecture, or the techniques or materials possible from vernacular architecture, we can achieve a lot of sustainability. Now I'm going to discuss few of these features or ethos from vernacular architecture which we can implement today and still create highly contemporary or modern building. That's what I'm going to talk about. So first thing is that building envelope. If we see the building envelope in traditional buildings, like this is again a structure from Rajasthan, Jaipur, where they were using these jalis because our climate demands for it, our climate requires it. And then the same thing, why can't we do today? Like these are our projects. Left side is this is a government building where we use these louvers, and the other slide is of a residential project where again we use vertical small fields of wood for a residential project. So I think we can still have this kind of architecture which is inspired by vernacular, but it looks quite contemporary. Now this is another just a facade of one of our project, which is a collector office, a government building again, where we use vertical fins. Now using vertical fins is not a new idea, but it can still be used innovatively enough to create a contemporary architecture building. Where because these days when we think about modern buildings, we immediately start associating them with glass buildings with curtain glazing and all that. But we wanted to prove that it is not necessary. We can still use vernacular ethos with this kind of building envelopes, and still it can be a very contemporary building. So, but we have to really work on it. We have to have proper right kind of size of the fins and distance between the fins, and it will cut the radiation. At the same time, this building is naturally ventilated. It is not mechanically air conditioned. So, it helps to have breeze but cut the radiation. So it has to be climate responsive architecture. Another ethos in vernacular architecture is these courtyards. These courtyards really help in creating microclimate, modifying microclimate rather, I would say. So the same courtyards now we used in a modern building. This is again a government building where this courtyard has been worked out so well that it remains shaded throughout the year, because it also acts as an additional waiting space. So if you see here, and introduce some kind of little water body, it can modify the microclimate and add some humidity to the air. So these courtyards are very good features which were already there in our traditional buildings, which we can again revive in our new buildings. And they in public building, especially in India, however you provide waiting spaces, they're never enough because of variable occupancy in public buildings. So they can also act as additional waiting areas. So this is another courtyard in a building, in a government building again. It's a collector office, Pune, where this building is fully, it's a naturally ventilated building. So this courtyard with a skylight on top with turbo ventilator really creates nice stack effect and induce that air current in such a way that it doesn't require air conditioning. So we can go for it, which was there already in our vernacular architecture. So this is how it is, just explaining how that left side what we see are ventilators, which is towards the courtyard side, which sucks in the air from windows to the right side. So this really works well in tropical climate. So, but these courtyards are also possible in residential small bungalow projects, which were also there in our old houses. But these days, because of scarcity of space, the nature of these courtyards has changed. They become more vertical, and you need to have skylight on top of that. But again, it really works very well for light and ventilation. So I'm just showing a few of these examples. Now here we are fortunate to have open to sky courtyard, which works as a transitional space, and it serves the purpose of lateral ventilation as well. But where there is not possibility of having open to sky courtyard, we can still have this, which I only explained it through that section, where the courtyard goes G+2, and you see that turbo ventilator on top, and it really works well for natural ventilation. But we need to educate our clients many times that they have to keep these windows open, because most of the time what happens is people tend to close their windows forever. They don't open it. They're reluctant to open it because of dust maybe. Then every time it may not be possible to have a courtyard, but you can have a small slit in as a skylight, and you can still achieve good natural light. So basically, it's about having natural light and ventilation that be thermal and visual comfort to the space. Just one more example of that, where you can do this with side setbacks also. We tend to give a lot of such skylights for the toilet units already, because my observation is that most of these toilets they use artificial lighting throughout the day, but this can serve the purpose. Now my next thing is verandas and corridors, which again, if you see the traditional buildings, this kind of verandas, they're quite apt for our climate, because they create a buffer space between our exterior and interior space. Because as you know that our climate is very harsh, it's hot, dry climate, and such buffer spaces can help to avoid direct radiation to interior space, and it gives the right kind of thermal comfort there. So I think this feature of our traditional buildings can also be revived, and many times we can use this design this corridor such a way towards south or west that which will serve the purpose. So with this contemporary and traditional or vernacular ethos and techniques, because nowadays what is a vernacular material is a big question mark, because in a city like Mumbai or Pune, I think concrete itself is the most vernacular material these days, because that's easily available. Local people can easily work on it, and all the contents of the concretes are available in all cities. So my point is that using vernacular ethos and materials for our climate, which is creating climate responsive architecture, you can still create highly contemporary and modern buildings. So some of them you can just see here. This is our project in Pune, Circuit House. Another project is this Collector Office Pune, which is a national award-winning project. So there's absolutely no need to have glass blocks to depict the building as a modern building. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.